Hello and good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all are good and fine at your homes. So avoid going out. When you come home from outside, wash your hands properly. Wash your hands properly before eating, and keep self hygiene properly and be safe. Today we are going to start Science 2 Standard 10. We have seen the first session of this chapter. Now we'll see hereditary and evolution, the next part, that is evidences of evolution. See, previous session we had done a little bit about evolution, and we had done transcription, translation and translocation processes. So now we will see the evidences of evolution. Now, collective thinking upon all above mentioned theories implies that evolution is everlasting process of changes. So it is the process of changes which goes on continuous. So that is the everlasting process of changes. However, it needs proof to prove it. So following are the various proofs available in support of the theories mentioned above. So whatever theory we had done last time, so these are some of the proofs. Now if you see, first one is the morphological evidences. Now in morphological evidences, if you see, now see some of the plants and animal images they have given over here. Now various similarities, morphological means the structure, how they look. Various similarities like structure of their mouth, position of their eyes, structure of their nostrils and ear pinnae, and thickly distributed hairs on the body are seen in animals. Now see, in animals, if you see the hairs, the thick hairs, the coat of hair they have, then the position of their nostrils, the position of their eyes, mouth. See now, in the dog, in sheep and in the fox, it is most similar way, the position of their facial structure, it is same. Whereas similarity in characters like leaf shape, leaf venation, leaf petiole, etc. occur in case of plants. So the shape of the leaf, the petiole of the leaf down, the structure of the leaf, the venation inside, is it a parallel venation or reticulate venation? So all these things indicate that there are some similarities in those groups. There are some similarities in those groups, and hence it proves that their origin must be same and must have common ancestors. So some of the structural things they look same. So they must have got these things from the same ancestors. That is why they look so similar structurally. So here you can see the morphological evidences. They have given the structures of 3 animals and 3 fruits they have mentioned over there. Now we will see the anatomical evidences. Now anatomical relates to the structure only. So here, if you carefully observe the pictures, there doesn't seem any superficial similarity between the hand, foreleg or of ox, flipper of whale and patagium of bird. Now see, first is the human hand. They have given the bones, how they have the structure, how it is. Now foreleg of ox. You all must be knowing the ox. This is the foreleg of ox. Then the patagium of the bat, the wing that they use. Inside they have the bones. On that the skin layer is there for them. Then you have the flipper of a whale. This is the flipper of the whale. Now if you see, similarly, there doesn't seem any superficial similarity. Superficial means just by looking on the surface. That is known as superficial. Now, no similarity is there if you see from, just if you observe there, you will find there is no similarity between these things what they have mentioned over here. The flippers, the foreleg and the patagium of the bat and the human hand. Similarly, use of those structures is different in respective animals. So all these are using for different purposes. Like for hands we are using for doing work, but these ox they use for walking only because they are quadrupedal. So these are different functions they have in different animals. However, there is similarity in structure of bones and bony joints in the organs of each of these animals. Now, if you see the joints, you look, they are similar in all the cases. So, this similarity indicates that those animals may have a common ancestor. Now, if you just see them superficially, there is no similarity in between. But if you see the structure of their bones, how they have been placed, so you will find there is similarity between all these. So this says that they must have originated from a common ancestor. Now see, which are the different organs in a body of the organism? Each of the organs are useful to organism. Now you know most of the organs what we have: heart, lungs, kidney. There are many organs inside our body, and they all have different functions which are very important for our body. But there are some organs which are non-functions, and such organs are known as vestigial organs. So third one we have as vestigial organs. Now degenerated or underdeveloped useless organs. Now, degenerated or underdeveloped, which are not developed, or degenerated means it has not grown fully, not developed only. So that is degenerated. And useless organs of organisms are called as vestigial organs. In living organisms, sudden development of new tissues or organs for living in changing environment is not possible. So it is not possible, like the environment has changed and suddenly your some part of the body is changing according to the environment. That will not happen. That will never happen. So instead, existing organs undergo, so new development is not possible. So the existing organs undergo gradual changes. Now suddenly it will not change, but gradually it will change. So mostly a specific structure in the body is useful under certain conditions. However, same structure under different condition may become useless or even harmful. Now under the condition it matters, under what condition you are using. So now a specific structure in the body is useful under certain condition. Now under certain condition only it is useful, but in different condition it is not useful or it may be harmful also. Such structure begin to degenerate under such conditions as per the principle of natural selection. So the structures will start degenerating. Now it takes thousands of years for a structure to disappear. Now for a structure to disappear, it will take many years. Suddenly it will not happen. Now such organs are seen in different phases of disappearance in different animals. Such organ, though non-functional in certain organisms, it may be functional in other organisms. That is not vestigial in other organisms. If it is functional, if it is non-functional in certain organisms, non-functional means it is not useful. So it is not useful for them in any way. So in some organisms it is not useful, but in other organisms it may be useful. So it is not vestigial. Not vestigial means it is of importance to them. Now appendix, which is useless in to human, is useful and fully functional organism in ruminants. So appendix, the as you can see in the picture, that is the part of large intestine, which is the extended part of large intestine. Now it has no use in humans, but the ruminants, the cows, buffaloes, cattle, now in that it is very useful. Similarly, muscles of the ear pinnae, which are useless to human, are useful in monkeys for movement of the ear pinna. Now you must have seen they moving the ear pinners. The monkeys, they move the ear pinners if they get some kind of sound or something like that. So in that case, the muscles are useful for them for movement. But in humans, we don't move our ears to to listen or something. So in our case, it is not useful. Now various vestigial organs like tailbone, that is coccyx, wisdom teeth and body hairs are present in the body of human beings. So these are various vestigial organs which are of no use to us. Now you can see the ear muscle structure figure they have given, the wisdom teeth they have given, and the tailbone, that is coccyx. So these all they come under the vestigial organs. Now we will see further the paleontological It is paleontological evidences. Now paleontology means the study of fossils. Now fossil means what? The dead remains of animals which get buried in the ground. It remains same, preserved under the ground. So that for many years. So that becomes fossils. Now a question may arise in your mind that which organism existed millions of years ago. How can we tell this? Now this secret has been hidden in the earth. Large number of organisms get buried due to disaster like flood, earthquake, volcano, etc. Remnants and impressions of such organisms remain preserved under the ground. These are called as fossils. Such fossils is an important aspect of the study of evolution. Now see, if you take for example dinosaurs also, which got extinct many years ago, it was said that they got buried into the earth and all because of earthquake. Some catastrophic event took place and they all got disappeared. So means such animals like such, they got buried into the soil, and this study what they do, they dig out and they whatever they get inside, whatever remains preserved in the soil, they remove. That study is known as archaeological excavation, and what things they get, that those are known as the fossils. So here large number of organisms get buried due to disasters. Disasters like flood, earthquake, volcano, all these catastrophic events what that takes place, because of that there is a loss of life. So all these things they get buried inside the earth. Now remnants and impressions, whatever remains are there of those organisms, they remain preserved under the ground. So under the ground they remain preserved over there. So they are called as fossils. So these are known as fossils, and study of these fossils is very important aspect for evolution, that how evolution has taken place, that we understand from that. Now carbon consumption of animals and plants stop after the death, and since then only the decaying process of C14 occurs continuously. Now this is carbon dating method, where they come to know the age of any substance like wood, etc. So here the carbon which is present in humans, that is C14 and C12. Now here C14, C12 is a stable one, but C14, this is the isotopes of carbon. Now C14 it starts decaying because it is radioactive. Now in case of dead bodies of plants and animals, instead of remaining constant, now there is a ratio of C14 is to C12 that remains constant in living things. But as they die, when they die, instead of remaining constant, that ratio, the ratio between changes continuously, as C12 is non-radioactive. Now see, C12 is non-radioactive, C14 is radioactive. So because of C14, that ratio it decays. So because of that, because it is radioactive, so it gives out radiations. So there the ratio which is there, it keeps on changing continuously. Now the time passed since the death of a plant or animal can be calculated by measuring the radioactivity of C14. So you can measure with the help of the radioactive, you can measure the time passed since the death of a plant or animal. So that can be calculated. So how old is that, you can calculate that. So the ratio of C14 to C12 present in their body. Now this is carbon dating method. So this is known as carbon dating. With the help of carbon they come to know how old that thing is. Now it is used in paleontology and anthropology for determining the age of human fossils and manuscripts. So for determining the age, this method is very important. Once the age of the fossil been determined by such technique, it becomes easy to deduce the information about other erstwhile organisms. Means other organisms, it is useful to determine the information about them. Now it seems that vertebrates have been slowly originated from invertebrates. Now vertebrates, first they were invertebrates. So slowly from them only changes took place, evolution took place, and vertebrates were formed. Now see the introduction to scientist over here, carbon dating. Carbon dating method is based upon the radioactive decay of naturally occurring C14 and is developed by Willard Libby. So decay of which isotope takes place C14. Now he has been awarded with Nobel Prize in 1960 for his invention. The age of the material determined by this method is published in the journal Radiocarbon. So by carbon dating method, we can measure the age of that substance or fossil when it was before present. So here you can find the structure of ground levels and fossils. Now see, first they were invertebrates, then you will see Pisces and amphibians class, then reptilians, then apes, birds and mammals. So like it started from invertebrates and then slowly it developed and it formed the vertebrates over there, and the era is also mentioned over there. Like for amphibians, Pisces, invertebrates, they were in the Paleozoic era, then the Mesozoic era and Cenozoic era. So now fifth one we will see the connecting links. Now observe, now they have given their duck-billed platypus, lungfish, peripatus. Now in that, what is the link between that? Now some plants and animals show some morphological characters by which they can be related to two different groups. Now they belong to two different groups, means they show some similarities or some characteristics which are the characteristics of two groups. So that is why it is known as a connecting link. Now hence they are called as connecting links. In peripatus, characters like segmented body, thin cuticle and parapodia like organs are present. Similarly, these animals show tracheal respiration and open circulatory respiration similar to arthropodas. Now it is showing similar in arthropodas also. What functions of arthropodas is there, that also it is showing. So it is connecting a link between the two. This indicates that peripatus is connecting link between Annelida and arthropoda. Now Annelida, earthworm and all, they belong to the segmented body. Earthworm also have segment, so they are to the Annelida. So here you will see peripatus, it is having the characteristics of these both groups, Annelida and arthropoda. So that is why it is called as a connecting link. Similarly, duck-billed platypus lays eggs like reptiles. Now reptiles lay eggs, but shows relationship with mammals due to the presence of mammary glands and hair. So it is having that characteristic of what? Of mammals also and of reptiles also. So of reptiles, what they are having? Duck-billed platypus, they are laying eggs like reptiles, and also here they are having mammary glands and they are having hair like mammals. So they show a link between the reptilia class and the mammalia. Now lungfish performs respiration with lungs irrespective of being fish. Now respiration with lungs. Now fish, they respire through their gills, but it respires through lungs. Now these examples indicate that mammals are evolved from reptilia and amphibians from fishes. So this says that mammals are evolved from reptiles and amphibians from fishes. Now carefully observe the stages of the embryonic development. See what the embryonic development is given over here. The stage 1, 2 and 3. Now see in fish, salamander, tortoise, chicken, pig, cow, rabbit and man. Now if you find over here, see the first stage of all these. Now you will see in the beginning the embryo, it is showing the same structure. See the structure of the embryos, it is same. So comparative study of embryonic development stages of various vertebrates given in the picture shows that all embryos show extreme similarities during the initial stages. So during initial stages they look similar. If you observe on page number 7, that 1.10 embryos during different stages, there you will find that they have similarities in the structure. Now similarities in the initial stages indicate that common origin of these animals. So because of this, there is embryological evidences also that these must have been originated from a common ancestor. Now Darwin's theory of natural selection. Now Charles Darwin had collected innumerable specimens of plants and animals, and depending upon the observation of those specimens, he published the theory of natural selection. Now what he did, he collected innumerable species of many plants and animals, and he did observed them, and depending upon the observation of those specimens, he published the theory of natural selection, which preaches, which tells, or which tells the survival of the fittest, means the one who is fit only will survive, and who is fit to the changing environments, only that organism will survive and others will not survive. For this purpose, Darwin had published a book titled Origin of Species. So this is the book which was published by Darwin, that is known as Origin of Species. While explaining the concept, Darwin says that all the animals reproduce prolifically, means they are capable to reproduce or in large numbers. All the organisms compete with each other in a life-threatening manner. In this competition, only those organisms sustain which show the modifications essentially for winning the competition. However, beside this, natural selection also plays important role, because nature selects only those organisms which are fit to survive and rest perish. So when they are born, when the organisms are born, now there is a race for them to survive, and those who can fit to the environment, who can adjust to the surrounding, only those will survive and others will perish or they will die. And even nature will select only those which are able to survive in that condition, and those who are not able to survive, they will not live, they will die. Now, sustaining and selected organisms can perform reproduction and thereby giving rise to the new species of their own specific characters. Now see, now organisms, they reproduce and they give birth to the organisms similar like themselves and with their own specific characters. Now Darwin's theory of natural selection was widely accepted for a long duration. For a long duration this theory was accepted, but some objections were raised against the theory. Now some of the objections were raised, now we will see whatever the objections were. Now according to Darwin, natural selection was the factor responsible for evolution, but it was not only the factor for evolution, there were some other factors also responsible. Now Darwin did not mention any explanation about the useful and useless modifications. So whatever modifications are there, so useful and useless, he did not explain about them. Now there is no explanation about slow and abrupt changes. Now whatever slow and abrupt changes take place, now abrupt means what? Sudden or unexpected, which is not expected or suddenly it happens. So these are not explained by him. Irrespective of all these objections, Darwin's work on evolution has been a milestone. Means it was very important step which he did by finding out these a theory of natural selection, though he had some demerits in that. Now introduction to scientist, we have Charles Robert Darwin. Now 1809-1882, the English biologist proposed the theory of evolution. He is the one for the natural selection what we just studied. So he is a biologist, and he showed that all species of living beings have gradually evolved over the period of 1000 years from a common ancestor. So he showed that from a common ancestor only we have been evolved. He proposed that principle of natural selection is responsible for this evolution. So our first statement was not only natural selection is responsible. So he proposed that natural selection is only responsible for our evolution. Now evolution. Now Lamarckism. Now see here, Jean-Baptiste Lamarck proposed that morphological changes occurring in living organisms, they are responsible for evolution, and the reason behind those morphological changes is activities or laziness of that organism. Now whatever activities or laziness is that is responsible for those morphological changes. He called the concept as principle of use or disuse of organs. If you want to use or disuse, based on that concept, he called that concept on the basis of the principle of use or disuse of the organs. Now further he said that the neck of giraffe has become too long due to browsing on leaves of tall plants. Now he said that neck of giraffe. Now giraffe, you know, he is a browser, means whatever plants are there on the upper side which are hanging, you know, from there he will eat that because his neck is long. So they are called as browsers. So he said that the neck of the giraffe has become too long due to browsing on leaves of tall plants by extending their neck for several generations. Similarly, shoulders of the iron smith have become very strong due to frequent hammering movements. Now, what is saying that giraffe is having a long neck, but that long neck has happened due to for several years they have been putting their neck outside on the upper side to take the green plants and all for eating purpose. So he has developed that habit, and for that reason only he has got that long neck. Now similarly, if the shoulders of the iron smith they become strong because of frequently they keep on hammering the iron smith. So wings of the bird like ostrich and emu have become weak due to no use. Now see, the birds like ostrich and emu, they don't fly but they have wings. Now their wings they are not using only, so they are of no use. They don't use it. That is why the wings have become weak. Now legs of the birds like swan and duck have become useful for swimming due to living in water. Now see, swan and duck, they can swim in water. So they have used their legs for swimming in water. So they are useful for them. Now snakes have lost their legs by modification in their body for burrowing habit. Now see, snakes they burrow. Burrow means they make holes in the ground. So for that purpose, they just the modification occurred in their bodies and they don't have any hands or legs. All these examples are types of acquired characters and are transferred from one generation to other. So these are acquired by the organisms, and according to him, they were transferred from one generation to another. Now this is called as theory of inheritance of acquired characters. Now inheritance means from passing from one generation to another, or it is known as Lamarckism. It is known as Lamarckism, as it is given by Lamarck. Now see, Lamarck proposed that activities of the organisms are responsible for their evolution. Now whatever activities the organisms are doing, that they are only responsible for evolution. Now this French naturalist proposed that each animal or plant undergoes some changes in its lifespan, and those changes are transferred to the next generation, and such changes occur in the next subsequent generations also. So according to him, they were transferred from one generation to another, whatever activities they had. And what we see, and that was known as the theory of inheritance of acquired characters. So these they were responsible for that. So development of organs due to specific activities or their degeneration due to no use at all was widely accepted. So whatever he said, that due to specific activities that or development of organ was happening, or that degeneration was happening because they were not using it, so that was accepted wide. But transfer of those characters transfer from one generation to another, that was not accepted. So that was rejected, because it has been verified many times that modification brought in us are not transferred to the next generation. So whatever modifications, that will not be transferred to the next generations. So the living organisms can transfer the characters which it has acquired to the next generation. This is called ancestry of acquired characters. So what Lamarck said, that is what he said, that the characters which are acquired that passes on to the next generation, that is known as the ancestry of acquired characters. Now we'll see the speciation. Now formation of new species of plants and animals is the effect of evolution. Now new species are formed of plants and animals. Now that is known as evolution. Now species is a group of organisms that can produce fertile individuals through natural reproduction. Each species grows in specific geographical conditions. Now you know, every organism it will reproduce and form other organism like itself, and it will have some of its characters, and it will now all organisms they live in different geographical conditions. Some stay in the cold weather, some stay in the hot desert. Now their food habitat, reproductive ability and period is different. Now see, their food habitats are different, reproductive ability is different. However, genetic variation is responsible for formation of new species from the early one. This we have some genetic variation takes place when there is a difference in the chromosomes. So besides geographical and reproductive changes are also responsible. So besides geographical, the reproductive changes are there. These are also responsible for evolution. Similarly, geographical or reproductive isolation also leads to speciation, means the formation of species. Now human evolution. The biodiversity that is known to us has been said to be formed from very simple unicellular organism due to evolution. Now from unicellular only the multicellular organism has been formed. In this evolution, origin of human evolution can be shown as per picture given below. Now see here, we have given like ancient animal like lemurs. This is lemur, the first one. From there it has since evolution is happening and then it is 50,000 years ago there was a Cro-Magnon man. So it evolved from the ancient animals like lemurs. So last dinosaurs disappeared approximately 7 crore years ago. At the time, monkey-like animals are said to be evolved from some ancestors who were more or less similar to the modern lemurs. So they were like monkey-like but related to the lemurs. So it was around 7 crore years ago. Now tail of these monkeys-like animal of Africa is said to be have disappeared about 4 crore years ago. So this tail, slowly evolution took place. So now 4 crore years ago, 7 crore years ago they were found, means they appeared, and around 4 crore years ago their tails start to disappear. Now they developed due to enlargement in brain, their hands were also improved and thus ape-like animals were evolved. So slowly development happened and they evolved into a ape. Meanwhile, these ape-like animals reached South and Northeast Asia and finally evolved into a gibbon and orangutan. Remaining ape-like animals stayed in Africa, and from them gorilla and chimpanzee evolved about 2.5 crore years ago. So these are all forms, how they evolved and into what. Now evolution of some of the 2 crore old species of ape seem to be occurred in different ways. They had to use their hands more for eating food than other work. So they had to use their hands more for eating food than the other work. Those apes started to live on land as the forest started to decline due to dry environment. Now earlier the environment also started declining due to dry conditions, so they started to live on the land. So first they were living in the forest. Their lumbar bones, lumbar means your hip bones, developed in such a way that they started to stand in an erect position. Now if you see the first one, they were quadrupedal, they were on their hind legs and their forelegs, but then their development took place and they started to stand in the erect position, means only on the 2 legs in grasslands, and thereby their hands became available for use. So slowly the 4 legs which were there, they started to improve, and then they were like using like them hands to catch or something like that. So like how we are now. So these first human-like animals with erect posture which were using their hands have evolved about 2 crore years ago. So these proper with erect posture and all, erect posture and hands they were using for things. So these evolved 2 crore years ago. Now first record of human-like animal is with us in the form of Ramapithecus ape from East Africa. He was like human-like animal. Afterwards, this ape grew up in size and became more intelligent. It grew and became more intelligent, and thus the ape of South Africa evolved about 40 lakh years ago. So in South Africa, the ape evolved about 40 lakh years ago. The morphology of these human-like animals started to appear like to be the member of genus Homo. So they were like genus Homo organisms. Of genus Homo, the animals started to appear like them, like humans. We are like Homo sapiens. So about 20 lakh years ago, and thus skilled humans developed. About 15 lakh years ago, human walking with erect posture was evolved. So slowly evolution took place. So about 15 lakh years ago, humans walking with erect posture. They were walking with the straight posture like how we were evolved. It may have existed. They are saying, in China and Indonesia of Asian continent. Now, evolution of upright man continued in the direction of developing its brain for the period of about 1 lakh year, and meanwhile it discovered fire, and then development in the brain took place, and then they discovered fire. Now, brain of 50,000-year-old man had been sufficiently evolved to the extent that it could be considered as a member of the wise man Homo sapiens, as I said earlier. So, Homo sapiens was considered as the first wise man when the evolution of man is considered. So, there Neanderthal man can be considered as the first example of wise man. So, now if you see on page number 9, you can see there Neanderthal man, that was 1,50,000 years ago. It was considered as first example of the wise man. Now the Cro-Magnon man evolved about 50,000 years ago from now. So after Neanderthal man, it was Cro-Magnon man, which was 50,000 years from now. And afterwards, this evolution has been faster than the earlier, and then the evolution started taking place faster. About 10,000 years ago, wise men started to practice agriculture. Then, about 10,000 years ago, when the man fully, they developed brain and all things developed. Now they started to understand things, so they started to cultivate agriculture. It started to rear cattle herds also. They started keeping animals, hunting animals, and establish the cities. So they started to live in cities. Cultural development took place. Cultural activities took place. Art of writing was invented. So they started writing. Then cultural activities all took place. Now that it was invented about 5,000 years ago, and thus the history has been started. Now modern science emerged about 400 years ago, and industrial society was established about 200 years ago. The industrial society. Now, and we have reached at this stage, and still we are searching the details of the root of human history. Now, till now we are searching the roots of the human history. So this is all for hereditary and evolution. So read the chapter. I hope you will understand and try to find the questions. And we'll come with the next chapter in the next session. Thank you.